You almost missed the turn." Abby gave her the glimmer of a smile, sunlight breaking through the scowl, and Ellie smiled back. It wasn't her daughter's fault that life had been such hard going, but things really were going to be different here. Maybe there wouldn't be rainbows or unicorns or people singing on street corners, but Ellie hoped more than anything that her daughter could find a friend. "Okay." She took another deep breath and then glanced at the narrow road they'd just turned down, hemmed in by a hawthorn hedge on either side, the stark branches gleaming darkly in the rain. "So, this is the way to Wychwood-on-Lea. Good eye, Abby. Thanks." Taking another big breath, Ellie glanced behind her at the dark, rainy road before indicating and then pulling back on. "We're almost there. Really, I mean. What, you were lying before?" "I was being optimistic." She'd been trying to stay optimistic for the last month, or really forever, but especially since she'd bagged a job as administrative assistant for the history faculty at the University of Oxford. Considering her only job experience was 10 years of working in a GP's office in suburban Manchester, it seemed incredible, a true miracle, on par with statues crying real tears, that she'd been hired. She'd only applied for the job on a whim, if you could call desperation a whim. With Nathan announcing a sudden, open-ended trip to Australia, and the mean girls of Year 6 finding fresh ways to make Abby's life even more of a misery, not to mention her parents' suffocating concern coupled with more than a dash of condescension, a new start for them both had started to seem imperative. And she liked the sound of Oxford, had imagined working in a medieval building with all those dusty books and dreaming spires. She'd pictured herself cycling down some narrow cobbled street, or sipping espresso and talking about modern art in some bohemian cafe. Of course, it wouldn't be like that. She didn't know the first thing about modern art, but she'd needed to hold on to that rose-tinted image to keep her nerve. After 10 years spent more or less in a rut, the big, wide world was a little frightening. Her mother's skepticism and her sister's disbelief had fueled her determination to prove them, and her own secret fears, wrong. And when she'd found a rental cottage in a village only half an hour from Oxford, it had felt like another miracle, as well as some much-needed validation. She'd rented it over the phone, without even coming down to take a look, trusting that the photos were accurate and the estate agent was honest. This was going to work. She'd make sure of it. "So, this is Wychwood-on-Lea," Ellie murmured as a few buildings came into view. She drove at a crawling pace down the village's high street, first past a dark expanse of village green, and then onto a narrow street with terraced houses and shops on either side. And that was it. Wychwood-on-Lea was in the blink and you'd miss it category, but that was okay. She'd been tired of city living. Endless noise, all that pollution, and it wasn't as if she ever took advantage of any culture. The cinema once a month for the latest fantasy film, Abby's choice, was about as far as she got. Abby had been a bit nonplussed to discover the cinema nearest to their new home was 15 miles away. Her daughter wasn't as convinced about the benefits of moving to Oxfordshire as Ellie was. Yet. "Now we need to find Willoughby Close." The cottage she'd rented was part of the converted stables of a manor house, and it had looked incredibly charming on the website. 4 lovely little houses of golden Cotswold stone, with oak doors and mullioned windows, all of them sharing a cute cobbled courtyard. Ellie had imagined chatting with her neighbors over coffee, children running in and out of houses. They'd be like a family, only better, because they wouldn't sigh and shake their heads and wonder where she'd gone wrong. "Willoughby Close is near Willoughby Manor, isn't it?" Abby asked, and Ellie put on the brakes, gently. "Yes, why?" "Because there's a sign that way." She pointed to a little brown sign that aimed at a single-track lane off the high street. "Great," Ellie said, injecting a double shot of enthusiasm into her voice. "This is it." 2 minutes later, she was maneuvering the car through a pair of imposing wrought-iron gates, and then turning off the sweeping drive onto a decidedly rutted track, hemmed in on either side by cedar trees. It looked rather dark and foreboding.